Hello, my name is Abdullah Konte, and I'm with Skylar Nelson, and this is Win Sports, and we're here to talk about the progression of the Washington Commanders in their second preseason game against the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday night. It was a good time, fun to get back out there, get under the lights. Skylar's blind. I found that out. She can't see anything, so she needs binoculars. No, I'm playing. I'm clouded.
Wow.
I'm clouded, but yeah.
That's what we're doing?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I just love to give her a
We're
hard
not
time.
even
I'm gonna have to
gonna
give her.
mention
I'm gonna have to
that he
give you
tried
one.
to whack me with his lens during practice, guys. We're not even
I'm
going to mention that. But
I'm gonna let you borrow my lens next time so you can watch the game. But anyways, yeah, we're just here to talk about basically how the game went and what we saw. Obviously, I was on the field. Skylar was in the press box. So we have different perspectives of the game and just what we thought from it. But before we get to that, obviously there's been a lot of big news. The biggest news, obviously with BRob and Terry. So we kind of wanted to start off with talking about the BRob situation. And so, look, it was kind of a whirlwind of a few days before that game started. We got rumblings about BRob potentially being shopped. And I think this happens a lot, actually, where a player is shopped, but nothing really comes out of it. But when it gets out into the public, it can be maybe problematic. And so we heard about that. I think people were kind of like, okay, interesting. We didn't really think that'd be a real thing. But then the momentum of it getting to the point where it seems like he's on his way out has, come by with a quickness, So just tell me what your thoughts are on the situation. Do you think he will be missed if they do end up cutting him or trading him?
I mean, to be completely honest, when I first kind of thought about the BRob situation, just seeing like how far he's come, I was kind of like, but at the same time, I can see why they are trading him in some areas. I mean, he hasn't really been like a standout player during camp, but he is somebody that, adds some sort of depth to the team. I
Yeah.
think there are some concerns because he was injured a lot last year, and then he kind of came back into the fold kind of a little bit later on in the season. So I do kind of see why he is being shopped around. And also, too, just seeing like the depth in the running back room. It's very competitive. They already know where they want to put Austin. We just saw the amazing performances this past week from Bill and Chris Rodriguez Jr. So, honestly, do I think on a personal level they may miss BRob? From a brother standpoint? Yes. But at the same time, obviously, I have questioned, like really truly asked myself in my head, like how will the team dynamic kind of be? And we haven't really seen, if I'm not mistaken, fans, please call me out on this, but I don't go to camp and I don't see people screaming for BRob like they are for Terry or like they are for Jaden. And maybe that's a little bit different. Even with Zach Ertz, people scream him too, and Bobby. But at the same time, I do feel like, BRob still was somebody that, fans did kind of want to see from last season and into this season. But I just feel like the more and more I see him, he's not really fitting into the scheme as much as people expected him to.
Yeah, it's tough because I think BRob is kind of in this, like, if you talk to the fan base, it seems like he's kind of in the middle where there's some people who are ride or die for him, or there are some people who are on the opposite end where they're like, oh, we don't need him, all that. And I kind of feel like maybe I'm more closer to the middle because I think he brings like, a specific skill set when it comes to hard, tough-nosed running, especially early on in the season when, every year we've seen him play in the beginning of the season, he's running really hard. And then eventually, like, I think it's just the injuries and just the, toughness of playing running back in the league.
Yeah.
It's hard, taking hits in November, it's definitely harder than in September. You know what I mean? Like it gets colder, it gets, you get more exhausted throughout the season. And I think that look, when it comes to this move, it does look more and more like he's gone. Like I think that's just the vibe we're getting from, everybody we've talked to, and just, there's rumblings that his locker's gone already. Like they already, his stuff is out of there. Like, I don't know how true that is, but that's what we're hearing on Twitter and stuff like that. So it just seems like it's just a matter of time before he's traded or moved. And I would say that, I think it's more about the value that they have in that running back room. It's like less about him specifically. It's more that they have 5 guys right now that I think they feel comfortable with, if you include him, with BRob, C-Rod, Bill, Eckler, and Jeremy McNichols. So, and you can make the argument for Felton and Kaz Allen. Like, they have a lot of people that I think they feel good about, and they're like, hey, if we can make a move and maybe get something in return for one of these guys, BRob is the likely guy. And so it shows what they like in the game. And it didn't help his case with the game. And we'll get to the game essentially, but just the way those 2 running backs started off the game, it didn't really help his case either. So, yeah, I agree. I think that the fan base, there's some people who love him, there's some people who don't. And I think that I do think he'll be missed for some of those short, tough yardage, but C-Rod did a really good job of that last year. I mean, we all remember that Atlanta game where they relied heavily on his hard running. There was a lot of argument with people, even when I was in Detroit for the game, for the playoff games, not only Detroit but Tampa as well, that people were like surprised that C-Rod wasn't getting an opportunity to play instead of BRob. So I think there might be some other stuff under the scenes that we don't know of, like the relationship with BRob and the players and the coaches or whatever, but I think ultimately they just feel like they can move on and it won't be a ridiculous loss for them. We'll just have to wait and see. I mean, this could be something like we saw the Jahan Dotson trade last year was something similar, and they ended up not needing him, and now you look at Jahan and it looks like he might be on his way out of Philly also. So honestly, basically, we don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, not to cut you off, but honestly, this is very similar to the Jahan Dotson trade, because even though I do feel like a lot more fans love Jahan a little bit more, but at the same time, because even that trade was pretty shocking. But, somebody who's seen the guys practice and seen how the team has been connecting, I mean, it wasn't really a big secret. It was just kind of like who was going to crack the code based on how the vibes were going in practice. But at the same time, I do feel like this still is a 50-50 situation because, again, we're still in preseason. Like, we don't know how the regular season is going. But at the same time, we've seen Bill and C-Rod kind of make those quick contributions, and then Austin is more in that situational spot. So it's very the depth is there, and it's a very competitive room, just like the wide receiver room. So, I mean, obviously there are going to be some fans who are going to miss him, but at the same time, the Commanders show in certain ways that this is where it becomes 50-50. What they've shown in certain ways so far that they don't need him. But on a brother's side, that's still in questioning. On a brother's side.
We'll see. I mean, that's the thing. As a teammate, we don't know. We're not there. We can say what we think from how well has he played on the field. And, us being at practice, at the games, like, we can get a little bit of here or there how things go. But, like, we're not in the locker room. We don't know what's happening with these guys. So, we'll see. We'll see how much of a role that it plays, as the season progresses. So let's talk about Terry. I mean, look, we talked about BRob and his impact on the team, but obviously talking about somebody who has a lot of leadership. What does it mean if Terry's not there? He hasn't been there on Saturday. He wasn't there today. Dan Quinn's answering questions about it and seems frustrated. So, I think people are just losing their patience and maybe just tired of talking about something that hasn't changed. And so do we have an update? Like, what do you think? Do you think anything's going to happen? Do you think we're going to have a solution on this soon?
Honestly, to be so real, the Terry McLaurin situation, I understand that it is getting to an exhausting point for fans, but at the same time, again, this is NFL business. I know that Dan Quinn is frustrated on a personal level as a reporter, Yeah. I'm not going to continue to keep asking those questions about Terry too much because Dan Quinn has said multiple times that if there is an update, he will give it, even though certain things are kept in-house a little bit, unless something is reported on Twitter or online somewhere. But at the same time, Terry is a star wide receiver on this team, and his impact, the impact that he has, there are so many guys on this team on offense and defense that have talked about his impact, that have emphasized his impact on this team from on the field to off the field. And, he means a lot to so many people, not just players, but fans and the organization. And we've seen him dap up Josh Harris. We've seen him say hello to Jaden's mom. Like, he means a lot to so many people. And I feel like, this contract extension is frustrating. And it is kind of worrisome because we are getting to the point where we're at the last preseason game. Obviously, Dan Quinn has said that if Terry is, activated off the PUP list, which he was last week, he wasn't going to see any preseason play anyway. I wasn't expecting that at all, especially since, he hasn't been practicing. He needs to go through that ramp up just like everybody else did in the beginning of camp, so he has some catching up to do. But at the same time, it is kind of concerning because the season starts literally right after the Ravens preseason game and hit the ground running. And Terry is a huge part of that. He was a huge part of this team. He had 11 touchdowns last year. It's something that, sets value here. And he's the top wide receiver on this team. Although Debo, we've seen some great things from him, Terry set the bar last year in terms of what a wide receiver should look like getting to his age. And I feel like, fans, they want to see Terry out there. I want to see Terry out there. I really do. But at the same time, it's a business, and I understand to a certain degree from an athlete perspective. Obviously, Terry thinks that he's doing what's best. But some things, were getting a little concerning when I did see him out there with the fans because it's kind of like, let's wrap this up and sign a contract. But at the same time, again, this is business. And at the same time, with Adam Peters, we've known that he signed contracts late, or in the middle of the season. We saw that with Marshawn. So, it is kind of, still
well, at least that one is a little different just because they traded for him, right? Like, I mean, I think that this is one of those times where we just thought it'd be a lot easier. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because there's just nothing to report. Like, he's just not here yet, and it's frustrating. But it's just, I think we're just all surprised it's taken this long. I mean, if you would have asked me after the season, even there was comments that Adam Peters had where he said, we want to make Terry a commander for a long time. I thought this would be done by like March, April. Like, I just never thought that this would go all the way into like deadline kind of situation. So either way, I mean, it doesn't look like they're going to trade him. Doesn't look like he's going anywhere. He's still under contract. Like, I think he's going to eventually play. I just don't know what's going to happen. You just want to, I just think, if anything, you just want this to be wrapped up so they can go into the season without that lingering over their head or anything like that. And yeah, like you said, the season's about to start. They need to get some reps in because, as you can see, anybody doing anything, there's rust, right? Like, I was shooting the game this weekend, and it's like, I haven't shot a game in a while, so there's rust. Like, that's just taking pictures, let alone running routes and catching balls and all that. So like, they need to get out there. I mean, it's just, or they need to get it settled, because I don't want to put this complete blame on Terry or whatever. It's just these two need to work it out, and hopefully just get it done quickly. So look, I don't really want to talk more about that just because like there's just nothing to say. There's nothing to report. There's no traction, and we're just waiting still in
Once we
waiting
find
mode.
out, y'all the first one to hear
everybody's
us
gonna
talk
know.
back
No, and the thing is, everybody's gonna know because it's gonna be the biggest news from Commanders for a while, because the fact
In
that
the NFL,
everybody's just waiting. Yeah, I mean, we've just been hearing about this for a while. Like, everybody just is waiting for this to be done, right? So, let's talk about the game, and basically, I'll talk from my perspective, and you can talk from yours, because we probably saw things a little differently. But I think the biggest thing that I'd like us to talk about is, one, how did the starters play? Because I think the game was really like instead of it just being like two halves, it was like you had the starters playing, and then when they went out, it was like a whole different game because, the energy was gone, from the crowd. Like, the crowd was more just like chilling, watching, as well as just like, the depth players were playing. So like the game was just different. So what was your thoughts on like the first team and like that first quarter? How did you feel about how they played, and were you excited being out there?
Well, from an offensive standpoint, it's better to judge from an offensive standpoint because on the defensive side, obviously Bobby didn't play,
Mm-hmm.
Vaughn didn't play. But on an offensive standpoint, and obviously Lermy didn't play either, but you did kind of see like where some starters really did shine.
Mm-hmm.
The first scoring drive, I loved it. It was
You
amazing.
called it. Wait, first of all, I got to give you your kudos because I went back and watched our last one, and you called it by saying that you thought Jaden was going to score a rushing touchdown, which he did.
Yes.
So congrats to that. Good on that
Thank
prediction.
you.
But
Thank
anyways,
you.
continue.
Yes, because Jaden, after seeing him in the last couple of games, well, not games specifically, like games last year,
Yeah.
and then just in camp, like that boy is hungry. Okay, like if he has the opportunity to rush it in himself, he's gonna do it. Like,
Yeah.
gonna do it. Like
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, from my perspective, I know, like, I don't know about if you heard about the slide situation, how people thought he should have slid.
yeah.
I was I mean, like, from where I am, he's running straight towards me, and I didn't think anything of him not sliding because I just thought, like, he's trying to score. And I get it that it's preseason, so it's like, why take that risk or whatever? But the guy is a competitor, so let him compete, you know? But
and
anyways,
plus too,
yeah.
he's not. People keep understanding. Like I get it. You know, people are so worried about injuries. They want to protect Jaden as much as possible. But at the same time, he is not a sliding. I mean, there are some times where he's gonna have to, and he'll make
He
that
will.
decision on his own. But he's not a sliding quarterback. Okay.
He needs to gain a little bit more weight so people feel more confident about him taking hits because look, he plays very similarly like when it comes to running. He runs similarly to Lamar.
Yeah,
Lamar's a better runner. Lamar's a better runner and he's thicker and he's like he knows when to take the hit, when to slide. Like that's probably one of the best parts of Lamar's game is that he actually knows when to take a hit and when not to. I think Jaden's still learning that, but he's also smaller. So like you got to really know that like yo, there's times you need to slide. But one thing about it is like he's just a football player. Let a football player play. Like we got to let people just do their thing. That's the way he plays. Like he might get hurt. That's going to suck. But that's football. People get hurt. You can't play timid. You can't play this game timid. So to me, I didn't see anything wrong with it. What's that?
Yeah, but his instinct so far, like even with last year, like even when he wanted to play in that one game last year and then they had sat him out and Mariota came in, even after that, when he was like, I'm good, like he was good.
Yeah.
And like you got to
he was hurting, but he was good. Yeah, like you got to let him do his thing. Like it's just the thing is that like you know one of the elements of his game is running. It's the real reason why we talked about the offense didn't look that great in camp, but it was also because he can't run. Like even if he runs, like they're not really trying to see how fast he can run and how fast he can go. Like that's a huge part of his game. And it opens up a lot of the offense. Like when he's able to run like that, then yeah, man, you got to put a spy on him. Like you can't just let him run loose and that'll open up lanes for the passing game or for his running back. So, you know, it was good to see him show his legs and also show that like he's confident in what he can do. And, I think that was the thing about the first drive was that like, look, they just look like a confident machine right there. Now, like, granted, Cincinnati's defense is not very good. Like, they weren't very good last year. They don't look to be that great this year. And I don't think Trey Hendrickson was playing at all. So, like,
he was.
That's not necessarily the best, like, team to go against to build confidence. Like, when it comes to, I mean, I guess it is good for confidence, but it's not one, it might be a little bit of false confidence. But I do think seeing Debo run, he looked great. You know what I mean? Seeing C-Rod make that huge run. You know what I mean? Seeing Jaden make that run. And then if we go even further to the next drive, seeing, you know, JCM Bill have that breakout touchdown. Like, it's clear they got some players. And the biggest thing was that Connerly played well. The old, like, Bates had, like, one of the best blocking games I've seen. Like, the O-line looked great, and they didn't have Tunsil. They didn't have Cosme. Like, there's optimism with this offense.
Or Brandon.
Coleman, yeah, exactly. Brandon Coleman. They had a lot of people who were missing. So, you know, at the end of the day, man, and if with Terry not being there, I mean, like, these are a lot of pieces that could really elevate this team. So I think there is a lot of, like, happiness when it comes to the offense. Well, what do you think about the defense, though? Because I think we know the offense looked great. That first quarter offense looked incredible. We got excited. We only need to see Jaden for one series, and he looked great. What do you think about the defense?
The defense actually played pretty well, you know, and I felt like that was kind of one of the biggest highlights. Like Kinlaw, there was Goldman, you had Jacob Martin. Jacob Martin had a really good
He was all over the place. Like, I mean, that guy was moving. He was moving.
And then Dietrich Wise, he had a good game. just seeing them being able to make that push and really just keep the offense on their toes. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. And, like, I'm not going to say that I was laughing, but there were some times where I was looking at the D-line just running after, well, even the DBs too, just running after
Joe
Joe
Burrow.
Burrow.
Yeah.
I held that in, but it was just funny to me because I really haven't really seen, like, I mean, I've seen the Bengals play, and obviously Joe Burrow is a great quarterback, but just seeing him run like no other like that.
I mean, like what I would say is like the first thing is that I think, I've talked a lot about the DBs looking like the most improved level of, or improved like position group from last year to this year. I think the most underrated is the D line, and it's mainly because they've got a lot of guys that are not super known. And like, think about when they do get somebody like Von Miller in there also, but like the D line looked great, and I think they do a lot of different fronts where they had Frankie Louvu rushing from the side. Like, they're really switching it around, and that's the exciting part. Is that we have people playing. We had Dorrance Armstrong playing a little bit more of a nose tackle versus a D end, and Kinlaw looked good. I mean, Martin looked good. He was running all over the place. Wise looked good. Like, they all really impressed me. I think, just like talking about Cincinnati's defense, I don't know how good Cincinnati's O-line will be either. So it's another one where it's like, okay, let's see how they play against a stronger offensive line. But at the same time, man, I think this defense is going to be good. I really do. Like, I think we're very hyped on the offense, and there was a lot of improvements on the offense. Don't be surprised if this defense isn't like a top 10 defense. They've looked very good to me. I know that like it's hard to tell because the competition that they've been playing against, one, they've been playing with depleted Commanders offense during the training camp. They played against, New England's offense, and they didn't do super well there. And then, with this one, they did pretty good against Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. There was that penalty by Noah I for pass interference, but overall, they look good though. I mean, I think the defense was surprisingly good to me. Like, I was very happy to see how they played, and the D line specifically. I mean, we've seen D linemen. We've seen this team have D linemen filled with all first round picks that didn't get as much rush as they got on Monday. So okay, look, we've talked about the O, we talked about the D, and I mean, my thing is, if you have more that you want to discuss about the starters, that's fine. But I also think we got to talk about the depth, because I think there's some concerns there. Like, if we're talking about things that were good, it was like the starters look great. All the starters look great. When it comes about everybody else, there is concern. So, like, what did you think about, the depth and, the second and third stringers?
Well, real quick before we get quickly into the depth, I do want to address the penalties because I believe most of those penalties were on defense, and Dan Quinn has a rule on that where it's like we got to keep those penalties down. And I understand the guys get pretty excited. When I saw Frankie with the first one, I was kind of like,
wasn't a good one. Not a good one for Frankie.
Yeah,
not a good one, because we all knew he wasn't. Yeah, and he wasn't gonna hike the ball. So it's like, why'd you rush it? I don't understand. Like, this was not a good. Like, I love Frankie. I love his energy, and I think he was just like in the moment. But like at that point, it's like you got to know, like, they ain't hiking that ball. So go ahead.
That moment just took me back to last year.
Yeah, no, it did. It didn't help. Everybody's been talking about that too. Like, it just PTSD. The when he's jumping over the Eagles line, like, it just didn't look good. It's kind of like,
I understand his frustration because they're like, we just want to win. And
I love his energy, and that's the type of guy you want on that team, on this defense. So like, you gotta take the good with the bad. So like, you got this times where it's like a dog on a leash that just wants to go, and you gotta like pull him back. If we gotta pull him back, that's fine. But it wasn't a great penalty, and luckily it was a preseason game, not a real game. But anyways.
Penalties, I kind of put in the same category in terms of, like, when the team needs something to work on, I kind of put that in the same category as special teams, because special teams is improving in its own way. There's still some little things that they need to kind of, patch up. But in terms of penalties, they really got to hold that down this year, because that's what's costing them the yardage, and then also to being put back onto offense into scoring position. And not to say they won't get penalties on offense, but it seems like most of their penalties are coming from defense.
Yeah. it's time for them to work things out. And to be honest, I can't remember all the penalties. Like, I'm trying to think of the ones that I remember. I know the Noah one, the the Frankie one, but for the most part, like I felt like at least execution was much better this game than last game, which makes sense. They played their starters this game versus the last one. So, but yeah, let's get to the depth because I feel like that's where, So go ahead. Yeah. What's your thoughts on kind of the depth play?
Honestly, well,
yo, that sigh said a lot. She said, "Oh, okay, we can talk about the depth."
that has been on my mind, and everybody's like. Obviously, I've had some people be like, oh, you shouldn't be concerned about that. But we have to kind of be because Mariota's out. But that quarterback depth behind Jaden and Mariota, to me, is a concern.
It's big time. Man, like, they looked horrible. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not, like, because what I would say is that coming on this, we don't ever want to trash nobody, ever. Like, that's never what we want to do. But we got to be honest at the same time. They did not look good. Their picks were like the interceptions they had were like thrown directly to people. Like they did not perform. It was kind of like so many people on the sideline were talking to me and they're like, does either one of these guys want this job? Because there's a fight for the third quarterback position and we're not sure. I would say that Josh Johnson is above Hartman, which is I like Hartman. Like there's something about Hartman that I like. I like Josh Johnson too, but I would be rooting probably harder for Hartman. I feel like there's some kind of energy that he brings, but like the decision making hasn't been great, and like the ball placement hasn't been played great. So
aura can only go so far. Like
maybe that's it. Maybe he has the aura. Now he had 100%. Yeah,
it's Sam's targets for me, and then Josh's interceptions.
Yeah,
like, it's not helping me.
They both had an interception that I was like. What? Yeah, because like I mean, Sam,
Sam got one too,
the first Josh Johnson one, I'm taking pictures, so like I only can see so much, right? So when they throw it, I'm trying to track to see where the guy is, and I don't see a guy over there. Like I can't see one of the Commanders guys over there. So I'm like, where's this going? And then I just see it was picked. I was like, yo, what happened? Like I was so like lost. I had to go back and watch the all 22 to see like what officially happened. And then the second one, or the one for Hartman, it was just like he just threw it straight to the linebacker. Like he literally just threw it straight to him. Yeah, like I don't. I swear, if you told me they just got lost and didn't know that wasn't their guy, I would have believed it. But it was just they were just both bad. And it's one of these things that since we haven't seen Mariota play, there's a lot of concern that if Jaden does get hurt, we're talking about injuries and stuff like that. If Jaden does get hurt because he doesn't want to slide, if Mariota's not there, this team is not going to win very many games. That's just point blank period. And I hate to say that, but the offensive play, like you could see the big drop off from when Jaden left the game until the other guys came in. It just, there's talk about, Luke McCaffrey. There's talk about, certain players that like were open that just didn't get a chance to do anything because of the fact that like, hey, like, they just didn't have the opportunities because the balls weren't there. Like, they couldn't get the ball to them. So, I mean,
getting into the wide receiver room, because you just brought up Luke McCaffrey, that's also another big concern. Only because obviously we talked about Terry. We're not going to get too much back into that one. Yeah. But at the same time, Debo played really well. Jalen Lane had a really good game. We got to give Jalen his props. I think he's growing into the expectations that they're putting out.
Yeah, he's a rookie and he's embracing the opportunity. Yeah.
But you still got guys that are on like the question mark side, like Michael Gallup, Luke McCaffrey, KJ Osborne, Ja'Cory Brooks. Ja'Cory Brooks though has actually had some good game. Like he had a good game against New England, even
this game, I thought he played well enough. Like, if I had to give up, we talked about that 6 receiver spot, right? And I think that out of all the positions, for somebody to make, that's the one that we're not sure. That's probably the most intriguing spot. Like, I think we know where everybody else is going to be, especially after the BRob thing, because I think we weren't sure about the fourth running back either. But after the BRob thing, and now seeming like he's out the door, this 6th receiver spot is probably the most intriguing. And if I had to put a bet on it, or not even a bet, just my opinion on who I think should get it, I do think it's Ja'Cory Brooks. I just think he has the most potential. You know what I mean? He might not be 100% there yet, but he's somebody that I think like by the end of the year, you could see him going out there and making a huge catch for this team, you know? So,
and he's been looking pretty good throughout camp. Like, just seeing, you know, I mean, obviously he's had some drop passes, but at the same time, he makes up for it, and he was consistent even throughout preseason play.
This is where and this is where, like, man, like, you know, people, we've been hearing a lot about Luke and a lot about these other receivers, and it's like maybe they're just not playing with great quarterback play. You know what I mean? Like, can we acknowledge that if they were playing with Jaden, maybe it would be a little different?
Yeah.
Like, maybe, I don't know.
And that's one of the things I'll fight for Luke, essentially.
Yeah, Luke, Luke
and Jaden, in practice, they're like this.
And honestly, watching the all 22s, like, there were plays that he was open. There was one deep route that he ran that he was open and he didn't get it to him. And like, there's some people who argue like, oh, he doesn't get enough separation. Maybe, but I also know that some quarterbacks throw you open. They throw you open where like you might not be 100% open, but he could throw it to a spot that you can catch it and no one else. And so that's where it's like, look, I will judge Luke because I do think people having antennas about Luke is fair because there hasn't been a lot of great stuff that's been said about Luke during the season or during the training camp. I think that halfway through the season is when we should really evaluate Luke and be like, yo, is he contributing? And that's why I said
that early on, too. I said that early on, even throughout camp. Like, as much as I want to, like, be like, in the beginning of camp, I got to give Luke props. He did kind of look a little bit consistent in the beginning of camp. Not the flashiest wide receiver, but there was some consistency. Now you're starting to see, like, those triumphs that he's having, and he's still a growing player in his second year in the NFL. Like, it's going to take some time, and I understand, you know, Commanders fans, one thing I've learned this year is they are very impatient.
Oh, heck yeah. That's fandom in general. It's fandom in general, and Twitter. Yeah. Twitter has intensified people's fandom, and this team's success last year has intensified this team's fandom, or these fans' fandom.
I understand, like, the whole hype around Luke, but also, too, you know, I do feel like you had said before, like, give it till like the middle of the season, towards the end. We're not
just let's see him play in some real games, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this guy could have 2 touchdown catches in the first week and everybody can shut up. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know. We don't know. And I would say, as people who've actually been at practice, I'm not saying that you can't debate is he worthy, and it's mainly because he was a 3rd round pick last year. People are expecting more, but it's like, look, let's wait and see. You know what I mean? Yeah. Some guys come along a little later. He is still learning the position. He was playing quarterback for most of his career. He moved to receiver a few years ago. You know what I mean? Let's wait and see. I'm not saying that you can't have, you know, your eye emojis on Luke McCaffrey, but just let's give it at least like 4 or 5 games before we start seeing if he's actually going to be contributing or not, right? But
it's kind of the same with well, not the same with Noah Brown, but that's also still another concern. Because of just the injuries and him being in and out of practice, you know. Yeah. And then he didn't play. So, you know, fans were kind of like, okay, well, what's going on with that?
Yeah, I don't – for Noah Brown, we just need to see these guys out here, man. Like, we don't – and this is where, like, you know, I would say the only thing that's a little different this year is that they're very, like, holding things close to the vest. They've always been – they usually hold things close to the vest, but, like, I feel like we don't know what's wrong with Noah Brown. Like – we don't know what's going on, and it's preseason, so like, you know, we don't know if any of them if they're even nervous or not. You know what I mean? It could be that like, hey, we just know that this is a time for people, and they're maybe focused on the younger players or whatever. But at the end of the day, they will need Noah Brown, they will need Terry McLaurin, they will need these guys to be able to come out and play well. And worry of that is that since they haven't been practicing, will they be in sync? You know what I mean? There is a level of being in sync when you're practicing every day, and you know, scrubbing the rust off, you know. So you know, essentially, look, I think from what we saw was that this team, the starters and what they've been able to build is pretty impressive. It's very exciting to see. I think Debo's got to have a crazy year. I think if you are a fantasy football, since we talked about fantasy football one of the last times, if you are into fantasy football, I would say get Debo Samuel, okay? So, yes, in the real draft, since Skylar doesn't know if it's real or not, in the real draft, get Debo Samuel.
I'm not.
But
Look, I'm not going to be doing all this fantasy football stuff. Okay. Now,
yeah, no, that's fair.
free time. Maybe y'all see me build my.
That's what I'm saying. Look, we'll get you in the league one of these days. You know what I mean, and get you educated to how it is played. You know what I mean. But at the same time, it's not needed. Focus on just analyzing the game. You don't got to play the nerdy fantasy football.
Yeah,
you know?
I was about to say because then I'll be calling you up. Like, what am I supposed to be doing right now?
Yeah, who do I start? What do I do? What's? I mean, look, I'll help you out,
I got time
man.
for all that right now.
One thing at a time. One thing at a time.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, I mean, ultimately, I think that we think that the offense and defense look really good to start the game, and yeah, it was great to be out there for the first part. Like, you guys know I love photos. Being out there to take photos, seeing the team makes me even more excited for the season. Just getting back into it. I think everybody was just happy to be out there again. The vibes were very nice, man. It felt like that Atlanta game last year at night. And there's going to be a lot of night games this year, so it's just exciting times. And I think they really got a good guy in Jaden. I mean, the kid is ridiculous. He's a competitor. He wants to win. He's trying everything he can to win, which is just exciting for anybody who's following this team. So
no sophomore slump.
People. I don't believe it either. I'll be honest. I don't. I would say
whatsoever.
he's more likely to be better this year than he was last year, and he's done that every year of his career. So I would be betting on him playing even better, which is crazy because how good he played last year. But we'll see.
Also,
You know what I mean? Injuries make a difference and stuff like that. What's up?
Also, real quick, because I didn't want to lose the thought, but Trey Amos didn't play, that was another big thing.
That's a good one to mention because it was like they said he had I think hamstring tightness or something like that.
Tightness.
They made it sound like if it was a real game, he would have probably played, and that they're just being careful. But it is something to monitor. You know what I mean? We saw how Lattimore was with his tightness last year and how he missed a decent amount of games. Maybe that's just a thing that happens to corners. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but it is a good thing to mention because it was kind of something that was just flying under the radar that no one really noticed.
It was a big question mark, and it was kind of buzzing around what's going on. And nobody said anything until really after the game, and Dan Quinn was like, "Oh, just
I think I was talking to you about it. It was so funny because the practice before what we went to when Adam Schefter was there, he didn't play in that practice, or at least I remember seeing Noah I playing, and I was like, "Oh, Noah I is starting," and I almost tweeted it out, but I was like, you know what, I'm not going to tweet this because if there's a reason for this, I'm not really trying to break anything because I don't want it to be. Yeah, he was starting, and I was like, oh, maybe he's just starting because he's been playing well recently. But then, I was like, I don't really see, I don't see Amos anywhere. And then when the game, it was the same thing, and I was like, they're clearly holding him out for something. So, is this something to monitor? But yeah, look, the next game is on Friday. I think we'll drop maybe a couple of videos beforehand, maybe do some analysis on some of the players that we didn't shine on, like Ale Cajo was somebody who played really well, the linebacker that we didn't talk much about. I honestly want to go in and kind of do a little bit more reviews on the all 22s. And we might do another, preview for the Ravens game, but it is going to be more of just the backup, so I don't know how in depth that'll be, but hopefully we'll do some more coverage beforehand. But we just wanted to drop a video, just get you guys acclimated to what we saw. Is there anything you want to tell them before we bounce out of here? Anything about what you saw, or just go ahead.
Real quick,
just one thing.
Because you said
thing.
Friday. The game is on Saturday.
Look at you. Look, this is why I need you, man. I don't know what I'm doing. Saturday. Yeah. You have a bunch of people on Friday out there like, yo, where's Lamar? Where's the game? The game's on Saturday.
Abdullah, Konte, though.
Yeah, exactly. No, Saturday. I appreciate it. But yeah, no, thank you so much for tuning in. And we'll get back to you guys on the next one. Peace.